Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Kim Burton. She is a director of project engineering and she's also a pilot. So I'm really curious to learn more about where her interest in engineering came from, her work in industry, and how speaking has been a part of her work life. Thanks for being a guest. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Kim.
Thanks, Neil. Good morning. I've been really excited about this podcast. It's awesome.
Great. I'm glad that you've been excited. I'm excited as well. So, from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you got a degree in electronics engineering technology. So, what was the motivation to get that degree?
Random scholarship, man. I used to hide that bit of information because people think that you have to have some kind of divine calling for engineering and STEM. I knew I wanted to be in something technical. I loved my physics classes in high school. I did not know what to major in, and so I met with the College of Technology at a school that, quite frankly, I picked because I knew I could keep running track. And I just liked the school and the vibes, and they had a good technology school. Someone from their program called me and said, I know you don't know what to major in, but we'll give you $1,000 if you try electrical, and you just have to take one class and you can always change. And I was like, sure, I don't know what they do, but I'll do it. And I loved that class. I loved making things. I plugging in little blinky lights. We learned about like Carnot mapping, which was this thing where you could take a bunch of mysterious inputs from one side, mysterious outputs from the other side, and you could write an equation for how that all comes together. I thought the logic was so cool and I loved it. So I was lucky. It's been really fun. I think more kids should go into electrical. It's kind of a it's kind of a mesh between physics and computer science, which are both growing degrees. And we are seeing fewer electrical degrees, which I don't understand. So I tell everybody I can to think about it.
Oh, that's lovely. Kim, I used to lie about why I got into engineering as well, and it had nothing to do with us with money that the school was giving me because they didn't give me any. But I went into engineering because my father said that I should go into it, and I had no idea what I wanted to do after high school. He said do engineering. I said okay, engineering it is, and I mean, like yourself, it worked out okay too. So it's not something I'm all that upset about.
Neil, I know I met an aerospace engineer who confessed to me that he picked it because it was the first thing on the alphabetical list. So, so you don't have to be that sure. It could just work out.
Yeah, absolutely. But I saw you also got a master's in electrical engineering too. So what was the motivation to get that degree?
A couple things. My undergrad was in electronics engineering technology, which is a 4-year degree. It's a lot of labs. Like they really want to be hands-on. We take a little bit less math. You can stop at Calc 2 if you want for a technology degree. Some industries care a lot about that category. Like when I had an internship at a power plant company, and they were like, if you were a technology degree, we're hiring you as a technician, and your pay is a lot lower. You're not eligible for a lot of job titles. I was in aerospace at the time, and they don't care that much, but I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in the industry forever. Well, I ended up staying in it forever, because I love it so much. I'm glad I got to. And my company had a great tuition reimbursement. So since they would pay for a master's degree, I was like, you know what? Let's prove that I could be a quote real engineer. Let's take differential equations. Let's get an engineering master's.
Oh, okay. That was yeah. I was actually curious about that because when I saw technology in the degree, I was wondering, did that make it different than engineering? So it sounds like it does, right?
I had to take about 9 hours of backup classes, calculus-based circuit analysis, in order to be eligible for the electrical engineering program at WSU. But then they let me in and I could just be like a normal engineering student. Yep. Now, the
Yeah.
funny thing about this is, now I'm in leadership. One of my mentors at the time told me, Kim, you are good with people. You're a good communicator. You should think about getting an MBA and going into management. And I told him, you're trying to marginalize women in science. You need to stick it. I am getting an engineering master's. Looking back, my mentors were right, but you can't do anything different. So I just try to read a lot of books and podcasts to make up for the fact that I did not get formal leadership education.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take. So then I'm curious. I mean, you said that the the industry that you've been in, you've been really glad to have been in it. What type of work have you done in it over the years?
For the first 15 years, I was in avionic systems integration. So when we make airplanes, and I work at Textron Aviation, so we buy our avionics and engines from special companies that make that. Someone has to work with those companies to tell them, here are the interfaces, here's how you're going to talk to the airplane. So this isn't necessarily component level electrical engineering like you would think of it. I joke sometimes that it was kind of plugging stuff in, but somebody has to draw up a lot of schematics to talk about, here's the wires that have to go with the nose, tail, fuselage, talk to pilots, understand how we're going to get every sensor to send information to the flight deck displays. That's what I did for a long time. After that, I told my peers that I wanted to see what was the rest of the airplane. And so I left avionics electrical systems. I did IT for a little bit, talking about how we can, solve business processes. I went to customer service, got to go out in the world and talk to customers and find out how people use airplanes. And it was amazing. I did that for 5 years. And now I'm back and I lead a team of aerospace and mechanical engineers to make sure that our production lines are running, that our customer new requests are going in. I have an organization that does that.
All these career moves that you've made, Kim, were these ones that you wanted to, or were they ones that you were asked to make?
I'm not a huge planner. So every time someone has asked me, what do you want to do in 5 years? I have honestly told them I completely love what I'm doing right now and I will do this forever. But little things come up and you hear about jobs opening up, you hear about departments that need help, you start looking across at other buildings and thinking, man, that would be a really cool place to work. Actually, my toxic trait is that I see engineering jobs all the time and I'm like, man, that'd be cool. I really want to do that. So that's kind of how things have moved. For the first few years, it was people assigning me to other projects models. And I always was, readily, the first move, I was like, really? I've been here for a couple of years. Are you sure you want me to learn something new already? I feel like I just got my feet under me. But after that, I started getting really good at showing up on day one and being like, okay, I need a picture of the instrument panel and I need to know where the master switch is and how does the drawing tree start with the product architecture, and like, let's go. I learned how to think on my feet and got a lot, my fears diminished about moving.
Got it. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, when it comes to a career, I think a lot of people they think they have to go down this particular path, but if you do various things within the organization, you get to know it really well, and I think it helps inform all the other jobs that you'll do moving forward. So kudos to you for moving around within your industry. I think that was a smart move on your part. So I'm really curious to find out more about you being a pilot. I think that was really interesting when I read that when I was doing some research on you. What was the motivation to become one?
That was another this is going to be a ridiculous story. It was 2008, 9. The economy was crashing. The industry was falling down around me. Colleagues were trying to figure out where else are we going to go. There might not be a big future in aviation. Things are so bad right now. Do we go to medical devices? Do we need it? And I reflected and I was like, well, I have a 6-month emergency savings account, just like every good frugal engineer does. I could either wait until this industry fully tanks and then exhaust my savings, or I could just spend my whole savings on flying lessons right now because I've always thought about it. This might be my last chance. And then I'll just live in my parents' basement as soon as the job cuts all happen and I get laid off. So that safety net was a privilege. I will completely admit it. But I just didn't want to be that girl who'd worked in the industry for 8 years and never flew a little airplane. So my first flying lesson was absolutely terrifying. I'd love to say that I loved it, but we were getting kind of bounced around and stuff like that. But as soon as I got back on the ground, about an hour later, I was like, man, I kind of want to do that again. I want to get back in the air. And that is how flying went for the year that I got my pilot's license. By the end of that year, I was actually pregnant with our first daughter. So I was 7 months pregnant on my private pilot check ride. Didn't get to stay current, got back into it a few years ago. I have an instrument rating now, so I can fly in clouds. Not commercial rated yet, but I have a really good time just renting little airplanes and flying around the Midwest with my friends. We were just at the Oshkosh EAA Air Show. It's this big, 700,000 people, and everybody brings their airplanes and camps. There's a lot of little airports that have restaurants on them, or they'll let you borrow a car and go see town. And I love seeing Kansas and Oklahoma and Missouri, and we're having a really good time.
Nice. I mean, you mentioned during your working life being a leader. I'm curious, what's one thing that you didn't anticipate about having to lead others until you actually had to do it?
I had that's a great question. I had this notion when I was an individual contributor that when I became a leader, people would do what I said and go along with my ideas. I had no idea how much power I had as an individual contributor and how much people wanted to listen to me at that level. You almost have more power because when you're a leader, you can say, "Let's do this idea," and people will kind of nod their heads and say, "Yeah, boss," because it's in their financial interest just to say yes to you. But then they're not really bought in. You've lost your ability to have an easy litmus test for whether people are bought in or not because you're in a different position. And so when you're an individual contributor, if you have a great idea and people start going along with you, it's because it's a genuinely great idea and you can just run with it. And it's amazing. As a leader, the good ideas, you have to give credit to your team. The failures, you have to take the responsibility yourself, the accountability, and you own with it. And that's what's tough about being a leader.
Nice. Kim, when I first started this podcast, and it's still on the YouTube channel, and it's still the case to this day, it was all about learning more about people's struggles, or at least their journeys in getting better at communicating, speaking with other people, at least people that are technical in my instance with Teach the Geek. And I had to give presentations. Interestingly, you were talking about did some of the engineers have to move into the medical devices after the issues with in aerospace. I actually did work in medical devices for the entire time. So I had to
It's a
give
lot of overlap. It's very similar. Yeah.
so I had to give presentations in front of management on a monthly basis, and I wasn't very good at it, but I got a lot better at it over time. But before that happened, my project got canceled, and that was when I realized, this whole speaking in front of people thing, maybe this is something I need to get better at. So I'm curious as to you, when did you know that being an effective communicator could be of benefit to you?
It's funny you say that because when I went into engineering originally, it was because I loved logic, black and white, and I thought that my ideas would just be inherently the right thing and everybody would go along with me. And I would never have to prove myself or sell my ideas or talk to a lot of people or convince people that I was right. That turned out to be ridiculously not true. So I had a couple bad experiences. I was not a good public speaker at all. I didn't like to do it, didn't want to. I had an experience where I was invited to train a whole room full of pilots on a system that I had worked on and designed, and I had it memorized. And all of a sudden, when I was in the room, I just felt myself clench up, and I put one foot in front of the other, and I read my slides, and it was so boring. They were just tuned out, and I felt terrible about it because I was like, man, I missed my chance to earn credibility with this room. And I don't know why. I had a vision in my head of how I would sound, and I would not sound like it. And then I also had some really good ideas for, everybody use my website kind of things. Everybody, let's use this. That I would just put it out there and be like, here, everybody throw stuff in, it'll work out great. And they did not. And I had good ideas that I think got turned off in projects that didn't get to go anywhere because I didn't see the need to go to other departments and get buy-in. Those were lessons to me that I wanted to change.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking, Kim, you take me back 15 years. I'm thinking to myself, man, if I was just better at communicating the usefulness of this project to the people in the room, the CEO, CTO, CMO, C fill in the blank, oh, all the C's.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I was just better at it, then maybe they could be selling that product to this day. But because like yourself, I would get up there, I'd read slides, I'd try to get out there as quickly as possible, and I never would because they'd have a whole bunch of questions afterwards I thought I'd answer during the presentation. And you would have thought I would have improved after that first presentation, but no, it wasn't until my project got canceled that I thought, well, okay, well, maybe I should join Toastmasters or something.
Yeah, yeah, and that is actually what I did. I've heard you talk about it on other episodes. Toastmasters was what changed everything.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when it comes to presentations that you do now, or even in the past, do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
For a serious presentation, yes, I definitely have a process. I write down an outline of what I am saying. Sometimes I will talk through it to like Microsoft Word. I'll turn on the dictation and just let it write down all the words. And then I'll go through with a highlighter and like, okay, here's my points. I practice my presentations by, I like to walk. I like to walk laps around the track at the indoor gym at the YMCA because you can just mindlessly walk around and say everything. And then after I've talked through it, I'll go back to the outline and I'll go back to the original words. And if there's stuff that I naturally forget, I ask myself, is it really that important? If there's anything I naturally stumble over, I'm like, well, maybe I could cut it out. So I get the speech reduced down to the things that are just coming out and make sure that I memorize a good introduction and conclusion. I found out that that's really the key. But preparation is huge. The more I've gone through it, the more comfortable I will be, the less likely I am to forget things, the slower I can talk. I know from Toastmasters that I have a talking too fast problem that I will kind of have to work on, but also it's just me. I'm just going to be my authentic self. But I can talk so fast that my brain runs out of air and then I can't think and I really shut down and forget everything. So preparation is a huge key.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of practice as well. In fact, I remember having a conversation with a friend, and he was giving me a hard time over the fact that I practice presentations because I think in a lot of instances he just goes off the cuff. But if you were to ever listen to him, you can tell that he's going off the cuff because there would be a whole lot of talking, but it would be difficult to follow everything that he's saying. But I just figured if you had just taken some time to figure out what you should say first, second, and third, a logical flow to whatever you're saying, well, now your presentation is easier to follow, and people won't have to struggle as much to listen, and maybe they actually will listen as opposed to playing on their phones.
Yeah, I think being organized takes some pre-thinking. I also love and admire people who can just stand up there and talk. And there's a lot of things that I can just stand up and talk about, but my presentation will be more memorable if I'm able to get it down to here's the three things that I really want you to take away as an audience, and then recap those at the end.
Yeah, I mean, when you practice, you figure out what those things are. When you speak off the cuff, it just comes out as it does. And then after the presentation, you could think, "Oh man, I really wanted to have said that." But if you practiced, well, you likely would have said that. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm a big fan of
We
practicing.
have
You can
all
tell.
had those presentations that we ended up thinking about hours later, and you forgot. You're rethinking about all the things you forgot. Like, ah, should I get back to them? Should I tell them they forget something? And it's just gone. They're not
Yeah,
going to invite you back.
100%. Do you ever get nervous before a presentation? And if so, how do you handle your nerves?
Yeah, everybody gets nervous. One of my favorite authors, Scott Burton, has a book about public speaking. He says, I don't know if this is true or not, that we evolved from, working out in fields and trying to survive from like being predated, being like eaten by animals. And if you were in an open field by yourself with eyes looking at you, that meant you were about to get eaten. I don't know if this is true or not, but that's why he says being on stage is so terrifying because you're just seeing everybody, even though statistically you are as safe as you ever will be on a stage. If you have a heart attack on a stage, everybody's going to save you. So it's actually a great place, but we hate it. For me, slowing down and breathing is the key. And I just expect it now. I know my first few sentences of my presentation, I'm going to feel nervous and shaky. And I don't get nervous about that feeling anymore because I've been through it so much. It's kind of like learning a sport. When you first kick a soccer ball, your foot wants to go one way, or when you first start running, you want to have your arms at your chest, but you know that you'll be a better runner if they're at 90 degrees. That's what you gain from doing a whole lot of presentations and just getting used to it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And at least when I think about nerves, I think if you're not nervous, it's likely a sign that you don't care about the outcome of the presentation. And so I fully expect myself to be nervous. It's just how do you manage it? You don't want to be a sweaty, mumbling mess when you get up there. It's just knowing how to channel it. So I fully agree with what you're saying.
Oh, and I love that too. I'm going to tell people that if you're nervous, it's because you care. It's because it's important and that's what we value about you. So you're right. I'm going to tell people that I want nervous people talking to me.
Okay, yeah. I suppose you could frame it that way. At least
In a
people will,
way.
will know it's normal and it's a sign that you should have, as opposed to, oh,
Mhm.
I'm not normal. I remember one time a guest said that she wasn't nervous. And I remember thinking, man, your presentation must be crap.
Maybe some people don't have it, but I've had some amazing speakers tell me that they get nervous. The other thing I've learned through public speaking and training other people, everybody thinks that they look really nervous up there, but 80, maybe 90% of the time we can't tell. So you always feel more nervous than you look. That happens a lot where people look like they're doing okay. And honestly, the public doesn't hyper perceive you like you perceive yourself. So when people stand up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. I'm sorry, I have allergies today. I'm sorry that I didn't get very much sleep last night." I'm like, don't say that. Don't worry. We're not going to count. We're not thinking about you that much. We're ready to hear what you say. I know that sounds terrible, doesn't it? We don't care
No,
about
it doesn't sound terrible.
kinda.
It sounds honest. That's what it sounds. It's like, yeah, I absolutely would. I would think the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't sleep enough. It's like, yeah, just get to the presentation, man.
Yeah, exactly. Please tell me that you are prepared enough to make a good use of the time that I'm about to give listening to you. That's what I want to hear. That's why I don't want to hear about all of your problems. Let's get to it and teach me what I need to know.
Indeed. Absolutely. So for the people who are listening or watching our conversation, Kim, and they think this whole speaking in front of others thing, this is definitely something I want to get better at. What would be the first thing you would recommend they do to become more effective at speaking with others?
You have to practice it. And so, Toastmasters helped me a lot. There are other kind of public speaking clubs and forums now. There's even stuff that pops up like here locally in Wichita. We have Wichitax. We have some local events that have open mic. Take an improv class, if Toastmasters isn't in your area or right for you. I think there's a lot of ways to get out there, but you definitely cannot watch a YouTube or read a book and learn how your body. That would be like reading a book to learn how to play football. You have to go through it, right?
Yeah, I fully agree. Watch all the YouTube videos, listen to all the podcasts. Certainly, you can get some tips from doing that and reading books, but
Mhm.
ultimately, you don't get better until you actually get up in front of people and do it. And not only that, but practice makes progress. You get better each and every time you do it. This whole notion of being perfect doesn't exist. There's always something to improve at. And by getting out there, you get those opportunities to improve it. And not only that, but when you're a speaker, you gain visibility. And I think a lot of us technical people, we just think that our work should speak for itself. But whenever I think about that, I think to myself, well, why do you think everyone's just paying attention to you? I mean, you could work at a company with hundreds or even thousands of people, but everyone's paying attention to the work that you're doing. Well, probably not. You have to be the one who's advocating for yourself, and a great way to do that is to become more of a speaker.
Yeah. Well, especially as engineers and technical people. I mean, that's what I love what you're doing so much. Kids want to be things that they can see themselves in. So we have TV shows about doctors. They can watch sports on TV. They can watch basketball players winning and losing, but they don't get to see what engineers do. We work in a lot of proprietary environments on secret projects that we're not allowed to talk about. You can find lessons from your job and career to talk about. I love that you have a YouTube channel. I mean, I guess that'd be another way people could work on public speaking is just have YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, get yourself out there and talk. It's not as scary as everybody thinks, but we need to spread the message of engineering to the world. And this is the only way to do it. And we're not trained to do it because we're taking differential equations.
Absolutely. And also a firm believer in the technical people have all this expertise to share, and they're the best suited to do it, as opposed to someone else who's outside of the field, and you have to essentially give them enough information that they can convey what the technical people already know. It's easier to give the technical people those speaking skills or the resources to get them, as opposed to asking someone who's non-technical know what the technical people know and speak on it in a competent way.
Yes. Yeah. I've done some reading. When you read about big disasters in engineering, things where something really big failed, space shuttle explosion and bridge collapses and stuff like that. A lot of times what you find is that the real failure wasn't an O-ring. It was failure of communication for people to listen to someone else who was trying to tell them the truth about the O-ring, right?
Yeah.
That's what happened. It was between talking and listening. Someone knew that there was too big of a risk on a bridge or a project, and they couldn't get the message through. or they weren't being heard because people were just like, oh, they're technical and we have to take what they say and change it, and we're only going to listen to what they want to hear. So I mean, it's both sides, both talking and listening, but we cannot think that just because we are technical that our work will be obvious to everybody. We have to figure out how to get the message across.
Yeah, so the next time any of us are traveling across a bridge, we better hope that there was enough communication about those O-rings. This has been a great conversation, Kim. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
I am Kim Engineers on a lot of social media, and I am on LinkedIn, and I'll be at the Society of Women Engineers conference in October,
Wonderful.
speaking there. So.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Neil.